Imagine That, the podcast where we explore the magic behind the magic of your favorite theme parks. Join us as we pull back the curtain on the creative process, storytelling, and design principles that make Disney parks and beyond so immersive. Whether you're a lifelong fan, a curious creative, or just love spotting the details most people miss, you're in the right place. So get ready to tap into your imagination as we take a deeper dive into the lands, attractions, and stories that bring the parks to life. Let's imagine that together. Hello and welcome to another episode of Imagine That. I'm your host, Amanda, and today we're talking about Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. But before we get started, we have to thank our sponsors, Sunken City Design, Getaway Today, and We're in the Park. And of course, big shout out to our Lamplighters, our Patreons who are keeping that conversation going over on our Discord, which if you have not joined our Discord yet, now is the time. It is totally free. We're in there. We're always having fun conversations about the parks, and you should be there too. So click the link in the show notes below and come hang out with us. Before we dive into our topic, I'm not the only one here. I'm also joined by my husband, Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, everyone. Let's do this. Talk some Tiki Room.
Tiki Room time. So, usually we are talking about one specific Imagineer, but today, as this episode is dropping on January 5th, today is National Bird Day. And while this holiday is usually to raise awareness about bird conservation and protecting wild birds and captive birds through activities like bird watching and education, we thought we'd do a fun Disney spin on this by educating you about the birds we like to see at Disneyland, and that's, of course, the ones at the Enchanted Tiki Room. So, if you enjoy our conversation today and about the Tiki Room, and you want even more Tiki talk, then you've got to check out Tiki Cast, another one of our channels here on the Walt's Apartment podcast. You can join Joey and Teeny Tal and special guests as they talk about all things Tiki, Adventureland, and SEA, and more. So it's a lot of fun. But back over here on Imagine That, before we get into the attraction we know and love today, we need to learn a little bit about their culture. So, Kevin, what can you tell us about where Tiki's and Tiki culture comes from?
It's kind of a funny story where in my head, it was always like, hey, Tiki culture comes from Disneyland. That's just where I came to it from, and that's how I know about it. But looking it up, it's actually, it kind of goes back, according to everyone that I can like find in my research, to a guy named Donn Beach. He was actually born as Ernest Raymond Gant, but he changed his name in the 30s to Donn Beach as he opened up Donn's Beachcomber. It was a tiki bar in Hollywood back in 1933 that gained popularity pretty quickly. There are people who argue that it wasn't really a tiki bar, it was more of a bamboo bar or something. There's all these different nomenclature kind of things when it comes to like tropical bars, apparently. But the thing is, he kind of brought that into the American zeitgeist at that time when it wasn't really a thing that people knew or cared about. It wasn't something that was popular at the time. And he kind of introduced it, I guess. Right. He 4 years later went across the road from his original location and expanded with a restaurant that was just called Donn the Beachcomber. So it was kind of the same name, but just slightly different. Meanwhile, up north here, also in California, in Oakland, a guy named Victor Bergeron, Bergeron, yeah, Victor Bergeron Jr. opened a bar slash restaurant called Hinky Dinks, right, in 1934, a year after Don's Beachcomber. But he traveled to Cuba to try to learn some better ways to make some drinks, because again, he was running a bar, and he stopped by Donn the Beachcomber in Hollywood during his travels. And he was like, "Oh, what? This is what I should be doing." So he went back to Oakland and redecorated his Hinky Dinks into a tropical themed restaurant and bar that he renamed to Trader Vic's. And yeah, so these two restaurants actually kind of became chains during their time. Between the 1940s and 1960s, a handful of them opened, and other competitors kept opening too. So it kind of became the fad of the, I guess, decades there. Um, so that kind of just brings us into like the world of where we start getting the tiki room, right? where in 1959 Hawaii became a state. So the Tiki Room opened in 1963. So it's right around that time period that obviously the world or the country, I guess, was becoming more focused on Polynesia, and the I guess the look of not really being historically accurate for the most part. It was just like, hey, we love the vibes of island life. And that's kind of where tiki culture came from. And it's where it is today, really. There's still tiki bars all across the country. We obviously have some here in California still. The original Trader Vic's location, I don't know if the original one's open, but there is a Trader Vic's up north. But I think all the Don the Beachcombers, for the most part, have closed down over the years. But there's still a few Trader Vic's. They're kind of all over the country. No, sorry, beyond that, all over the world. Like they're in like different countries. It was kind of funny where there's one in Atlanta, I think, and one in like I think still the Oakland area. But beyond that though, they're like all over the place in Japan and just I don't know. I didn't bring up the list here because I didn't plan to talk about it, but as I started rambling, I just realized, yeah, they're all over the place still. So it's still kind of in the culture, even though the fad died out. I want to say like in the middle of the '60s, as the tiki room started to become what it is. So it's kind of funny that Walt kind of got onto this fad a little late, but he kept going. I want to say that it's running day, in, like no doubt because of the Enchanted Tiki Room and its legacy. So, so yeah.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know any
What
of
do you think
that.
about
That's
that?
awesome. I think that's awesome. No, I think that there's still a a passion for it obviously here in the States. And I know growing up for me, I had a big uh craze where I wanted everything to be Hawaiian prints and patterns and all of that because I loved the vibe of all of that. So it still has a place, so especially obviously in the Polynesian culture, obviously, it's still relevant, so,
I want to say
um
tiki is like as far as the word tiki originates from New Zealand, so it's not
oh,
even originally Hawaiian. But I mean, I guess it's all kind of interconnected out there with Polynesia and all that stuff. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about birds and talking about
we
an
are.
attraction with them.
Yeah, so, in terms of, bringing it back to Walt, there's a lot of kind of varying stories of where the inspiration for the Tiki Room came from, but one of the big things out there is this mechanical bird that Walt bought for Lillian in New Orleans when they were doing their research trip out there for New Orleans Square. And so he buys this mechanical bird, thought it looked pretty cool. It sings all these different notes. And it's like, how does this work? And, Walt being always the tinkerer and wanting to see how things work, he gave it to Wathel Rogers to take it apart. And um, so, as the legend goes, that may have been the inspiration that Walt had in envisioning a restaurant filled with all of these different types of birds. So, whether that's the origin of it or not, not really sure, but definitely
Yeah, I
planted a
mean,
seed into how these birds can be incorporated into the park, I think.
now we obviously have some more information out there that we're going to go over as far as how this idea may have really started. But again, it could be like he saw that bird and like that's what triggered it in his mind to be like, oh, this could work. Um, let's see here. Where do you want to go next with? Because we do have this memo. I guess the conversation happened before the memo, right? That's what we're assuming here.
Yeah,
So
there
let's
had
just
to have
go
been a
right into it.
conversation before. Yeah,
Imagineer Rolly Crump. I don't know if we've really covered him much on this show, but
not yet.
if you know Disney, you should know who Rolly Crump is. He worked on many attractions throughout the park, but one of them that he worked on was the Enchanted Tiki Room. And in his book, it's kind of a cute story, as well as Marc Davis's. I don't remember the title of it. I think you have it right there, right?
I got it right
All right,
here.
yeah,
It's
the
Marc Davis
something.
in his own words, Imagineering Disney theme parks. There's volume 1 and volume 2. It's a fantastic read with lots of pictures. Highly recommend you pick it up.
Yes. But yeah, so the point though is that both of these books have kind of a recounting of a similar story of like the day that the Tiki Room was kind of the idea was birthed, I guess. Like it's kind of the blue sky meeting without it being really a blue sky meeting, where the idea is that Walt wanted a tea room to add to Disneyland. And with tiki culture being what it was, he was like, "Hey, how about if instead we create a tiki room instead of a tea room?" So that's where they started, where they wanted to add another dining area for guests. They already had the spot over there at the Pavilion restaurant where it was like, "Hey, right here is a perfect spot where we can turn this into a little niche like spot for people to like hang out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, John Hench draw up some drawings of what this can look like, and he did. And the conversation that's in both of these books, and I'm sure others, there's been various like interviews with Rolly Crump that you can find online too. And we even our friend Jerry at Theme Parkology has a video about Adventureland that also includes Rolly Crump telling the story again. And again, they're always a little different. It's not the exact words. I don't know what was said that day. It wasn't transcribed or anything. Um, but the gist of it is that um, John Hench had done some concept art. And in that concept art, it showed people eating. And then above them, there were some perches with parrots and other birds. Right. And then I know you've seen this too, Amanda. So you don't have to have me tell the whole story. So you can take up some of this too. We can go back and forth on this.
Sure. So, so Walt sees this concept art, right? And he's he's a little concerned, right? Because why would you have real birds above people eating? I mean, that's always a concern for me whenever we eat outdoors. I'm always looking up. We don't want some bird droppings to land on us or our food. And
And
so
what's funny is that when I was doing my research about tiki culture, there was a video about a tiki like restaurant that opened in the UK when they actually had like live parrots like among the guests just flying around. So, I
no.
mean, it wasn't like he was that crazy to think that that's what John was saying. It probably wouldn't have been that crazy for John to think like that'd be an okay idea. So, take it from there.
That's crazy. Um, but yes, so Walt expresses his concern saying, "We can't have this. The birds will poop in the food." Except he didn't say poop, right? But the as the story goes, John says, "No, no, these are not real birds. Of course, they are stuffed birds." And Walt says, "Now, wait a minute. We don't do stuffed birds here." I'm paraphrasing, obviously, I don't know how he actually said it, but no,
I
we
think that was
don't put
exactly how he said it.
oh, yeah, just exactly like that.
It's like, "John, you're
We
being dumb. We don't stuff birds." Yeah.
we don't do stuffed birds, and certainly we don't put them in our restaurants. And then John says, "Well, no, they'll just look like stuffed birds. They're really mechanical birds." And so then Walt's like, "Well, now we're talking. Now we're getting somewhere." And then the conversation continues of like, well, maybe they'll chirp and they'll kind of talk to each other a little bit. And so from there, the story kind of builds into what we know today. But it starts from just having that conversation and just going back and forth. And from the story that Rolly says, if it just was kind of John talking, shooting from the hip, like,
Yeah.
no, well, of course not. They're not real birds. They're stuffed birds. Well, not really stuffed, but just going from Walt's expression of no.
Yeah, there's a similar story about John Hench kinda doing this again later in this episode, so keep an eye out for that. But, yeah, it's just kind of a weird thing where, like, you kinda think like, "Hey, here's my pitch to Walt Disney," and he's like, "Oh, no, I don't like it." It's like, let me alter this on the fly to what you would like, and then I still don't like it. How about if it's this? And then when he does say that, they're mechanical, it makes you wonder if Walt like had like one of those like from Ratatouille, right? Where it's like a flashback to a moment where he pictures that bird moving, being like, oh hey, it's like the animated bird from New Orleans. Or again, they say that he may have gotten the bird in other cities too. No one really knows. But the generally agreed story is New Orleans at this point. But yeah, so it could be at that moment, it's like he got it, where he's like, "Yeah, we could do mechanical birds that are singing and moving over people's heads in this restaurant. That would be a lot of fun." So, yeah, so Amanda found a thing saying that there's a memo out there for
Yeah.
WED staff. That's what Imaginary was originally called, WED. And December 10th, 1961. I think it's in the Marc Davis book. Is that where you're gonna like show us here? You have it all
Yeah,
correct.
and
It's such a
actually,
big book. It's
I
hard to
have
maneuver.
yeah, it is a big book, but actually I got the date wrong. It's actually the memo itself, or a memo, um, that was oh wait, no, I'm wrong. That is there's multiple memos in this book. I'm telling you
You're
guys, you
wrong. You
gotta
were
pick up
right.
this book. I was on the page with
Yeah.
Rolly Crump's story that we just had, there is another
Okay.
memo, so I thought that was the same memo. But again, you guys, pick up this book. If you're not watching us over on YouTube to see what we're talking about, come and join us on YouTube.
If
So
you're
you can
driving, it's
see.
fine. We're not showing that much. You can imagine
Please
it. So
don't watch and
yeah,
drive.
yeah, for safety reasons. But yeah, so anyway, so the memo from 1961, December 10th, according to the note here, it was assigned to work on designing, quote, birds for Polynesian restaurant. That's all they had it figured out as far as that went at that moment in time. Marc Davis, again, is a famous Imagineer, which I don't know if we mentioned much here on this show in the past. I haven't
Not
memorized every
yet.
episode that we've done, but he
He's
was
on
an
our
animator
list to
before.
talk about in he's on our list to talk about in the near future. So
Perfect. So we'll reference back to this episode when we talk about him. So he was an animator for many years. He worked on many of the like major characters for Disney, including Tinkerbell, and he was like they called him like the ladies' man, I guess, because he worked on Cinderella and Maleficent and Cruella de Vil, and I don't remember how many. There's just so many. Again, this guy was accomplished well before Disneyland was created, and here he was being asked to design birds for a Polynesian restaurant, and he went for it, right? So kind of wild as far as how things worked at Disney back then, where John Hench draws up an idea on what a tea room should look like, and all of a sudden Mark is designing what actual three-dimensional birds should look like because that's what they've decided that they're going to work on.
yeah. And in this Mark Davis book, there are so many pictures of concept art of not just the Tiki Room, but all the projects that Mark Davis worked on. So if you are a fan of concept art and stories from those who were actually there, you can pick up this book. So talking about the Polynesian restaurant, so it was already there in the spring of 1960, again called the Pavilion Restaurant, and it was kind of confusing because you would enter on the Main Street side and you'd get your buffet lunch, right? And then you would sit on the Adventureland side. And the menu was a mix of hot dogs and Hawaiian style options. And so in May of 1960, there were suggestions to turn it into a sit-down restaurant instead of this buffet style with a South Seas menu and quote perhaps some animation or show, which is always exciting. Kind of plus this idea of an eatery. And Stouffer's Restaurant Corporation became the sponsor of this idea and became heavily involved with the project. So they helped to develop this self service side of the restaurant on Main Street into the Plaza Pavilion, which is where the Jolly Holiday is today. And then the second half would be the sit down service location for the Adventureland side, which would be called the Tahitian Terrace. So there would be two
Tahitian.
separate locations, two separate eateries. What, did I have a typo?
You said Tahitian out loud, right? But it's the
Oh,
Tahitian terrace,
Tahitian. Sorry.
like from Tahiti, not from
Totally
not from
different things.
Tahiti. That's something else. Yeah.
Sorry. Um, Tahitian Terrace. And then Walt wanted a third section to have this bird room portion of the restaurant to be its own unique and separate show and dining attraction. So there would be three separate Stouffer's sponsored experiences. And so you could actually see some advertisement during this time that says Stouffer's in Disneyland. And that would be defining these three sections of the park, which is pretty wild. So
Coming soon. They like to do that. They like to have signs of
they
things
do.
coming soon that they never ended up building. Now they just save
Yeah,
that for
spoiler alert.
D23, right? They don't put it in the park. They just announce it at D23 and then they don't bring it to the parks. But yeah, so I mean, at least for this one, they did end up plussing it. I think what they ended up doing
Yeah.
was great. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess like when you said the South Seas, I kind of left out the whole like pop culture stuff with Polynesia. Is that by the time like this came out, like you already had South Pacific was a book, became a movie, became a musical. Like it was big. Like the world was on board with Polynesian culture for sure. And like there were movies out there like Elvis Presley had his own Hawaiian movie and yeah, so it was just kind of a thing. So they weren't inventing anything new as far as being like, hey, let's get in on this. Especially with the whole like idea of having a show or having an animation. It was something that was happening in the world. But yeah, so here we are with this idea for the restaurant. Um, oh, I didn't read that before. That's a nice note here, where there's going to be the first ever by reservation only restaurant. Is
Yeah.
that at Disney or in the world? What are we saying there? Probably at
That's
Disney,
just what
right?
the book said. It was
All
the
right.
first ever, reservation only restaurant. I'm assuming
Yeah.
at Disneyland?
They had to have reservations other places right before this. I don't know the world that well
Right.
from the 60s, but I assume it existed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
yeah,
yeah,
so
so
the plan there. Yeah, you can go through it.
you go for it.
All right, we have a slight delay here with StreamYard. So that's the reason why it sounds like we're talking over each other. I swear I'm not doing that on purpose. But yeah, so the plan here was to have 100 guests with like food already at their table when they arrived into the room. And then they would enjoy a 15-minute show of the birds doing whatever they're going to end up doing, and then they would leave within the hour. So you'd have a 15-minute intermission for cleanup, and then the next wave would come in. So it was kind of an interesting dinner show concept. I can't think of anything that exists like that today, right? I mean, obviously we have
No.
dinner shows that
Right.
exists, but with this short time frame of like, yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
very
I was
interesting.
thinking the same thing. Like we do have, medieval times or,
Yeah,
something like that where you have an experience as you're eating, but that's like a 2-hour thing. There's a pre-show, there's a whole thing. So to have this concept of one, I made the reservation for 3 o'clock. I get there, the food's already at my table, and we have at the Disney parks, we have Oga Cantina, we have Beacon Barrel where you have 45 minutes, but you're sitting down, you're enjoying the ambiance, there's stuff happening around you, but you've ordered, you know, and you're waiting for your food in the 45 minutes. Whereas this is you're sitting down and you're eating immediately.
yeah, it's
So
wild.
yeah, that's pretty crazy. But I guess it
Yeah, no,
works, right?
at Walt Disney World, they have like the all you care to eat meals and stuff where they do bring food to your table. I don't know if it's there before you sit down like this. I was thinking of the beer garden though over at Epcot where that one has a short show that plays like while you were eating and you can catch like the middle or the end of it. You aren't in there in waves. You're just kind of as you get in there, a show is happening. You might catch the middle of it and then it'll start up again with them doing their music and stuff and their bells and yeah, just kind of an interesting concept that I don't know how this would have worked out if they would have ended up doing it. But as we know, they did not do it. But
No,
yeah.
which we will get to that in just a moment. But first, it's time for an ad break. So, if you want to go experience the beer garden area in the Germany Pavilion at Epcot, or if you want to check out the Plaza Inn over at or the Jolly Holiday over at Disneyland, then you need to call our friends over at Getaway Today. They will hook you up and tell you all the ins and outs and tips and tricks that you need for a successful trip. So, let's hear more from them, and we'll be right back.
It's been a great show so far, but who's ready for an ad break? Did you know that the best way to keep our shows going is by supporting our sponsors? So, let's get to know more about the travel experts at Getaway Today. They've been helping to make vacation dreams come true since 1990. And whether you want to visit the happiest place on earth or to travel to Orlando for a most epic adventure, they are there to help. Are you trying to find out which hotel is your best option or which theme park tickets will work best for your visit? Are you concerned that you might need a last minute change? No worries. Their travel experts will help you out. Looking to book a cruise but don't know where to start? Hey, they can help with that too. They will find the perfect cruise for your vacation, whether it's your first time or you're a well seasoned cruiser. When you book your cruise with one of the Getaway Today experts, you will have a dedicated agent to help you every step of the way. They take care of the details so you can have the most fun. Getaway Today offers peace of mind travel, allowing you to cancel or make changes up to 72 hours before your trip. You will always have the most up-to-date vacation information, both pre-arrival and upon welcome. Getaway Today guarantees the best prices, with no hidden fees, and every time you book through Getaway Today, they will donate a portion back to a charitable organization in your area. And so far, over $4.5 million have been donated. So go ahead and dial 1-855-GETAWAY, that's 1-855-438-2929, and be sure to tell them that Walt's Apartment sent you. Or just click the link in our show notes for more information and the best deals to start your Disney, Universal Studios, or cruise vacation planning. What I'm trying to say is, if you like to travel, check out Getaway Today. Alright, so now it's time to get back to enjoying that view from Walt's apartment. Let's get back to the show.
Absolutely. Contact Getaway Today. They'll also help you with your Alani vacation as well. So, if you want to experience a fantastic vacation in Hawaii and go to the Alani Hotel, even just to stop by, you don't have to stay there, but just go and check out the resort. It is gorgeous. We haven't stayed there personally, but we have walked around like the grounds and the lobby and everything. It is fantastic. So, contact Getaway Today and they can help you with that vacation as well.
Yeah, it's true. We had lunch there. It was really fun. You could
Yeah.
also check out the little I was trying to, it's like Mahanua. What's the name of the little guys? You know what I'm talking about? Little
Yes, they have
people
a
of Aulani.
yeah, they have a little seek and find adventure around the lobby and the grounds where you're finding this little guy. What's his name?
Menehune.
Minahune. And yeah, so you know us, we love a good seek and find. So
Yes, definitely.
Uh, yeah, a lot of fun. So, speaking of things to find, one of the things that you'll find in the pre-shows of the Enchanted Tiki rooms are some tiki gods. And so, we just want to take a moment and tell you who these tiki gods are. So, I'm going to pull it up real quick. Kevin, let's get us all set up.
All right. So, like we were saying, right? We had it where Walt and his Imagineers had a conversation. Let's create a restaurant. Let's have it be based on Polynesia. And while it was still a restaurant, Walt went to Rolly Crump again. We brought him up earlier and said, "Hey, what, while people are waiting for their reservation, they should be waiting in front of the restaurant, and there should be something there for them to see." And I was thinking that they should have tiki gods there that they can like see a little pre-show with of some kind. He didn't really give him like much direction other than like, "Hey, really make some tikis," and he's not Hawaiian. He's like, "I don't know what that is." So he was told to go to the library and find a book. According to, like I said, in his book, it's kind of a cute story. He mentions that the book that he found was Voices on the Wind by Catherine Luomala. And he used that book to figure out some Hawaiian gods. So here we go, right? Also, in that book, though, they do also mention Menehune. So, just want to tie that in there. I found a copy of it. I was like flipping through. I'm like, hey, they're in this as well. So they weren't part of the tiki room, but they did make it into the other resort there. So again, some of these I don't know if I'm pronouncing these correctly. Again, I am
Yes.
also not Hawaiian or Polynesian or Maori. Maori. Um, because again, this is Polynesia, Hawaiian, and Maori gods. That's who these tikis are. I don't know if they were all called tikis. I think I read somewhere those Maoris from New Zealand is where the term tiki came from. Again, a lot of this was just cultural appropriation from Americans from the 1930s, snowballing into the 1960s here. So, and the book was from 1955, I believe, by Catherine over here. Voices on the Wind. So anyway, so the first god is up on the screen if you're watching us on YouTube. And again, if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, just pronounce it correctly over me. I won't be offended. Um, Citricua. What do you think,
Yeah.
Amanda?
Yeah, I think so.
It's
I think that's right.
Citrikua, and this is the god of health. You can find this god in the Magic Kingdom version of the pre-show, not at Disneyland. And this is a fictitious god that was made up for the attractions. Even though I said he looked up stuff in the book, this is after Rolly's work on Disneyland. We just have it in order. I don't know if this is alphabetical or looks like it, huh?
No, it was,
Mostly.
and I was like, "Nah, it's fine. Doesn't matter."
All right. All right, so mostly alphabetical order, but not completely. So anyway, in no particular order, we start with Citricua, the god of health that they made up for Walt Disney World. The next up, we have Hina Kalaua, which is the goddess of rain who travels with Tongarua Ru. I don't know if that's the god of wind or would have a note on that
Yes.
one here. I
Yes,
believe so.
goddess of the East Wind. We'll
Yeah,
bring up
there.
Tongariro in just a second.
All right, perfect, perfect. Again, these are in
So,
no
yes,
particular order. We're just showing pictures. So this is Hina Kalaua, again, which was in the book, I believe. And she has
and
where she like rains from her hat.
at area, yeah. The one on the left is from Disneyland, and the one on the right is from the Magic Kingdom. So,
I didn't even know the Magic Kingdom had one of them. So it's pretty cool.
yeah,
All right, because the Magic
I was going
Kingdom
through all of
doesn't
our
have
photos,
that
and I was
many
like, "Hey."
tikis. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were way
Alright.
more tikis at Disneyland than Walt Disney World. Next up, we have Koro, the Midnight Dancer. Well, again, I don't have like the full text on what it says on the sign, but it's fine.
That's fine.
The idea is the Koro dances at midnight. I don't know the rest of the details. Uh, After Koro, we have Rongo. Rongo is the god of agriculture and cultivated food, but he was also the god of kite flying. He was said to be the first. I don't know what to say person, but mm,
First
the first
first
tiki
to
to
fly
fly a
a
kite. I
kite.
don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
just the first creature on the planet to fly a kite was Rongo. And yeah, so he or she, I'm not really sure if these gods have genders, but this tiki wears a hat that holds a bowl of fruit because again, god of agriculture and cultivated food. Next up, we have Pele. I think that's how they say it in the pre-show. I would always say
It's a
Pele
Pele.
personally,
Yeah.
but I believe in the pre-show it's I'm Pele, goddess of fire and volcanoes, something like that. And then fire comes out of the sky during the pre-show, which is pretty cool. Um, And then next up we have Tongarua Ru, which I brought up
No,
earlier
wait,
as the
you skipped one.
goddess. Oh, I skipped Nagendi. I don't even know how. We have Nagendi, creator of all gods and goddesses, and they balance the earth, which is why they are teetering over here, balancing on their head. And then we have Tongarua Ru, the goddess of the east wind who brings rains. And up top there with the little like, I don't know, what do you call those little propeller guys in the head? They do spin
Yeah,
during the pre-show.
yeah, it's a bird. It's a bird
Is it a
on top
bird?
of his
The
head.
bird wings?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
My
they're
vision's
bird
not that good.
wings.
All right, I believe you. Then after Tongarua is just Tongarua, which again we have that. I think it's like a Tongarua Terrace over at the Disneyland Hotel now. But this predates that. We have Tongarua here is the father of all gods and goddesses, not to be confused with the creator of all gods and goddesses. But this is the tree bearing new life every spring. I hear it's recently been fixed for I want to say like over a year. It had it where it wasn't working correctly, where it has these little flowers coming off of the limbs where it drops down with like little tiki gods because it's creating more tikis. And we would go there and be like, oh, heartbreak that it's not working, but it's working again, and that's great news. So
Yeah.
there it is. Um, and then we have Udi, and this was only in early iterations of the attraction, so you're not going to find her there today. This is the goddess of fishing. So she was originally shown perched over the top of the entrance of the Tiki Room and Tiki Juice Bar, which came a little after the attraction opened. She was alongside the Barker Bird and was sitting in a canoe. Apparently,
It
there was some wood rot though, which made it where that part of the building collapsed, and they never brought it back. So, um, yeah, Udi statue apparently can still be found over at the Polynesian Resort over at the Walt Disney World area. Which I don't know if I've
that's
seen
cool that
her.
they were
I
able
don't.
to keep her intact, but I understand about
Yeah, or at
the
least
boats.
recreate her. I don't know if it's the same
Yeah,
exact statue.
yeah.
And then there was Oa, which was a temporary addition, I believe, to the Enchanted Tiki room over in the Magic Kingdom while it was under new management. And it would come down near the end of the show to kind of reprimand the characters. I think we have a little bit where we'll talk more about that, so I don't want to like give too much away here. Currently over at Trader Sam's Grotto, is the actual figure there, or is it just referred to? Because I know they have the drink, the that you can order, and then
She's
like they
there.
have like stuff
This
happen.
Yeah, she's actually there. She's above
Oh,
the
cool.
like the bar area, and she's an animated figure. There's a whole like show with her, and her eyes glow as you see here.
I
Um,
love that.
and yeah, there's a few things from Mouse Steps that I found where like her eyes move. There's like some projection mapping or something, and the lighting changes, so she becomes alive in the grotto.
I
So
like this.
have to check that out
I like
next
it a
time we're
lot
there.
for sure. And then we have Maui. I think that's the last one on our list here.
Yeah.
Maui is the god of time, and this one has it's kind of a cute story from from Rolly Crump's book of the same title. Yeah, do you want to tell the story? I feel like I've been talking a lot right now. Do you remember the story? I don't know.
Uh, yeah. So, well, kind of. I think you know the story better than I do, though.
We'll just tag team it. It's fine. I'll fill in the gaps.
Okay. Okay. Um, so Rolly, as we mentioned, he was looking through this book and was trying to, do some sketches of these tikis, and all of them had names, right? As we were just talking about. But he drew up the concept for this one, but he didn't have a name for it. It just kind of looked kind of cool with the water coming out that would then hit. The canister would fill with water. It would then fall and make a sound. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool, but he didn't have a name for him. And so he's showing all of these concept drawings to Walt. All of them have names except for this one. And Walt says, of course, what's this one's name? And he's like, shoot, I don't know. But luckily, John Hinch was right there shooting from the hip again. And he's like, well, he's the god of time. And he said
Well,
something.
actually,
He said that no,
I'll
wait,
fill in the
I
I'll fill in the
apologize.
gap
I
here.
apologize. Let me go
Yeah,
back. He said that it was terra cloth or like terra what was it?
Eden cloth or something.
Beaten
Something.
cloth.
I wish I had the note
Something
in front of
along
me
those
here.
lines.
Give me 10 seconds to see if I can find this here.
Okay.
Of
So
course I don't.
while so John says something along those lines of like terra cloth or bean cloth or something like that, but Walt mishears him and hears clock, not cloth. And so he's like, "Oh, the god of clocks, like he's like, "Yeah, the god of time." And so Walt goes, "Okay, yeah, that's great." And then Walt walks away, and John turns to Rolly and says, "You better find something in that book of yours that has the god of time, because he's now the god of time." And luckily, there was a god of time, and his name is Maui. So we know from Moana that he lassos the sun. And so we have a sun figure with ropes around him up above as he's roping him in. And he is the god of time. So there you go. Kevin, did you find it?
I've been trying so hard over here. I do not know
That's okay.
exactly what it was. My internet's can you still hear me? I don't know.
Yeah,
Like trying to search things are going down over here, so we'll see how long
that's
it
true.
lasts. All right.
But yeah, it was something like that. Terra cloth or terra anyway, he mistakens it for clock is the main
Like
point of the story.
John Hench was just kind of being a smartass, and Walt misheard him, and he just went right for it. It's just like the bird all over again. Essentially, is all it really was. Whereas oh no, that's what it is. It's fine. It's whatever you want for it to be, Walt.
Yeah.
And he sold it, and here it is still in the queue today. Where again, really just like the way it's actually a bamboo that fills up with water.
Yeah.
And drops, and it's from Japan. The design, like you'll see it in a lot of like Japanese gardens and stuff. That is to scare away apparently rabbits and deer. So they don't eat your crops. So yeah, so he just liked the way it looked, and it had nothing to do with Polynesian culture other than it had bamboo and like I said, there were bamboo bars that were Polynesian themed, but it wasn't part of Polynesia to have this kind of intricate like setup. But he liked it, and they went for it, and here it is still.
It definitely adds to the kinetics because, if you just go in there and the pre-show hasn't started yet, Maui is still trucking along. It has the water effect that then fills up the bamboo, and then you hear the sound of it falling. So it does have those sound kinetics just as you're walking right in. He's actually one of the first gods that you meet right on the left as you walk through the entrance. So I think that's really cool because it draws you in and you want to learn a little bit more about each of the gods, which all of them we kind of alluded to. They have kind of a poem or a story on a plaque that's right next to them. And Marty Sklar actually wrote all of the poems that are on around the garden. So I think that's really cool. It's a little nod to one of the greats, Marty Sklar.
I hope that Rolly gave him a copy of the book to like base it on. I haven't gone through and to like fact checked any of these to see if they all match what the book says, but hopefully. I don't see it in our notes here, but there's actually like again kind of a cute story from his book where he talks about how he had to create these sculptures, because I think today like they aren't the original sculptures, they're all made out of fiberglass or whatever. I think even he says that that's what they did back then, but he had to actually hand sculpt all of these
Wow.
because he did all the drawings for it for Rolly Crump. He designed them all like on paper because that's what his job was, that's what he did, and he showed it to Walt. Walt said, "Hey, good, perfect, approved. Make these." So he went over to Blaine Gibson, Imagineer, who again I don't know if we talked much about on on the show or not. Um,
We did.
we did mention him in the episode about the partner statue. I can't remember if that was this show or if that was our
That was
We're in the Park
that was
podcast.
episode that was episode 43, our Blaine Gibson episode.
Awesome. All right, so he went to Blaine Gibson, was like, "Hey, you're the guy who sculpts things. Can you please sculpt these tikis?" Pretty simple request. Blaine told him, "No, I'm busy." Little stop. So he's like, "Well, then who's going to make these?" And then Blaine just told him, matter of factly, "You are." So he got Rolly Crump set up. Was like, "Hey, here's how you build an armature," because Rolly had never sculpted anything in his life. He was not a sculptor. And he apparently used a plastic fork from the cafeteria there at Imagineering to carve these sculptures. So the ones we still see in the park today are based off of his sculptures in plasticine or something, some kind of weird clay that he was using, where he had to make them in the parking lot of Imagineering because it was too cold inside of the building to actually model like this clay. So, so it was a springtime. So I guess I don't know how many months before this actually opened, he was working on these, and he designed all of them. He actually designed some of the tikis inside of the attraction as well. I think he said like 70% or something, 'cause I don't know who else was working on the actual tikis. But that brings us to the who's who of the tiki room.
Yeah. Well, real quick, talking about Rolly before we round out, I did want to share that the drum tikis that are above the windows, um, these before in the last like up to the last show before it went live to the public, they really said they kind of seemed a little dead, a little lifeless. Yes, they were drumming along, but they need a little extra something. And he said he after that final show of the run through, he got a stepladder and went up with a screwdriver and put in the shiny bits in their eyes. Little medallion in their eyes so that way when they moved a little glimmer was in their eyes and just gave them a little bit more life. So now, next time we go to the tiki room and I see those, because I notice them every time, I'll know that that is a little Rolly touch.
Yeah, give a little thank you to Rolly for adding that to that. A lot of people say Rolly too. I think he said
Oh,
Rolly, so I'm gonna stick with Rolly. And we did a lot of research for this episode, which we usually don't do too much on. Imagine that we kind of just go over like the people, not all the hundreds of details they have about the tiki room. And it's just so many people on YouTube videos I was watching where it's one or the other, and I believe it's short for Roland.
yeah.
So Yeah, so it makes sense to be Rolly, not Raleigh, because it wasn't Roland. So I don't know. If you know better, correct us. Join our perfectly free Discord and give me a lesson on how to say Rolly Crump's name.
Yeah. So next up, we're going to dive into the who's who of the Tiki Room because we've been talking a lot about what the Tiki Room is about. But as we've alluded to, there's a whole team of people who have brought this to life. So we usually just focus on one Imagineer per episode on Imagine That, but we're going to be talking about a lot of them. Some of these we've already done a deep dive on, and others are on the list because we have lots of Imagineers that we want to talk about over the upcoming episodes. So, first off, which I'm shocked we have not yet done a deep dive on the one and only Marc Davis, but especially in diving into these two books in front of me, we have a lot to talk about. But he was responsible for a lot of the concept art, but especially developing the birds and the flowers for this restaurant turned attraction. So there's a lot of concept art in the design and his thought process in creating the birds and the flowers and how would they move and why he focused on orchids for the flowers. So we will be covering all of that and more when we do our episode on Marc Davis for sure. uh, and then we have John Hench, which we already alluded to a little bit ago. We covered him in great detail in episode 8 when we were talking about force perspective, when we were talking about the Imagineering Pyramid from Lou Prosperi. So shout out to Lou Prosperi, uh, which just a quick plug if you haven't already, his books are now available in audio format. So if you listen to audio books, you can now check out his books over in audio format, which is pretty cool. So yes, John Hinch was responsible for the interior design look. We were already talking about the original concept art and drawings that he created for the look of the building itself, the show building, um, and just with the fountain in the middle and all of that. So, Kevin, you want to do the next one?
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out. According to the Imagineering story by List That I Work, again, we did a lot of research for this episode. Another art director, because John Hench was an art director on this project, but another one was Bill Martin. His name doesn't come
Ah,
up. It doesn't come up. I can't even talk. Doesn't come up on a lot of research, and apparently he did contribute to designs for like Sleeping Beauty Castle, Snow White's Adventures, Peter Pan's Flight. He was definitely involved with the parks. So I don't know exactly what his individual contributions were to this attraction, but he was part of the story, so we don't want to leave him out. Bill Martin and we've already brought up all kinds of things in this episode. Rolly Crump was kind of pivotal in getting this actually created. Um, so he did a lot of the dimensional designs with the birds and the tikis, obviously. Um, yeah, I think I already covered the Blaine Gibson story here. He also created the mobile that comes down in the second act of the show, I guess. I think it's the second act. I don't know acts of shows. But there's a part of the show. If you haven't seen the Tiki Room before, um, either go to a Disney park or go to a YouTube video and go check it out. It's a lot of fun. Um, Apparently it's a Busby Berkeley style mobile. I didn't know. And according to Rolly, he designed it to look like they were Vegas showgirls. So he put like sparkly things on their chests, and it has it where when they spin around, it like shimmers on them, and they sing a song.
which in the Mark Davis book, there's a quote from Rolly that said that the Vegas showgirl part that was actually an idea from Walt. So,
Really,
that they
that's
needed to
funny.
be more of the showgirl type
Yeah,
of, the counterparts to the the other
the male
birds, so
leads. Yeah,
that's why they have so many
interesting.
feathers and they're very, like, proper and all that in comparison, so I thought that was really cool.
There you go. I like that. Yeah. So then not an Imagineer, but he is a Disney legend, I believe. Wally Bogue was involved with creating some of the gags for the show. He was famously part of the Golden Horseshoe Review, and yeah, so they brought him over like, "Hey, Wally, You're funny. Let's add some things. I don't know if I found anything saying like which individual gags like in the show that he contributed to. Because it was kind of between him and another guy on this list here, which I don't
We'll
know.
get
Actually, do
to
we
it.
have one? I think I have it written down, or I don't know. I'll just keep reading. So, I guess it's Fulton Burley, which I thought was on your list, but I'm not seeing it now. So I guess I'll just bring it up right now. Which again, he was another guy who was involved with the Golden Horseshoe Review. So they just brought them over because again, it was a smaller company back then. It wasn't like they needed red tape to go through. Walt was just like, "Hey, we're working on a story. Get the story, guys. They'll come over here."
Which you
The
do have
music.
him when we talk about the 4 main birds.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So the musical arrangements, a lot of the songs in the Tiki Room, everyone thinks of the main song, obviously, like the titular song of the Enchanted Tiki Room. Um, but a lot of the music in it was actually music that was created long before the show, but it was rearranged by George Bruns. So you have the Hawaiian War Chant, Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing, and Barcarolle. I'm not Barcarolle. I don't know how to pronounce this. It's from Jock Offenbach's opera Tales of Hoffmann. So if you know how to say this correctly, you know what we're talking about. So it's just all these elements were brought together to bring the show into reality. So George Burns, I think he also worked with the Sherman Brothers, which I don't know if I don't see them on the list either. So I'll bring them up right now. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that's I
Um,
have him right
s-
there.
okay, he also worked with them. Got it. I see it now.
Yeah.
All right, so he worked with I missed it completely. So he worked with the Sherman Brothers, who were famous for every Disney song of the time. Mary Poppins, Carousel of Progress. Sure, there's Jungle Book. There's so many things they worked on. But the Tiki Tiki Tiki. Is there three? The Tiki 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 Room, is that the official name? That
Tiki, tiki,
song.
tiki.
The Again, if you've seen the show, it's already in your head. It's been in your head since we started talking about it. Um, Amanda put in from episode 10 and talking about the pyramid. This is the small world effect because again, they also did the song "It's a Small World." So they were brought in. It's kind of I don't know if we have notes on this, so I'll bring it up now. Perfect. All right. So with them, they were brought in kind of late on this project where they had already created the whole show. They had decided, I want to say, spoiler alert, that it wasn't going to be a restaurant, it's going to be a show. And they had it all set up over on a soundstage at the Disney studios. And they brought in at least Richard Sherman. I don't know if Robert was there too or not,
Yes,
but
he was, but Bob had already seen the show. This was
okay.
Richard's first time in seeing the show.
Okay. So that's when they brought him in and he was like, "Oh, it's a neat show. Well, like, what are you gonna do with this?" He's like, "Well, we need for you to create it." Walt telling him, "You need for you to create a song explaining what this is because it's something that didn't exist, right? That's the whole idea. Is like this concept is new. This is the very first of its kind in the whole world." Which again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but they brought in the Sherman Brothers to kind of explain to the audience like what they're even looking at. So that's how they got kind of I guess, brought into this. So anyway, back
Yeah.
to Imagineering. I
Well,
don't know if we have
before
more stuff
since
about that or yeah,
yeah,
go for it.
it was later on in the show, but since we brought it up now, so Kevin mentioned stage 3. So stage 3 is where they had everything put together, at the final stages of development. It was kind of doing a final run through before it was installed in the park. And so this is when Richard Sherman was brought in, and Walt said just that of like, no one knows what this is about, so we need you guys, the Sherman Brothers, to write something, and we need it like ASAP because this is going in the park like tomorrow. So the sooner the better you can get this done, like make it happen. And so that is I mean, talk about working under pressure, but that's what, they were hired to do was to create catchy songs. And so they came up with the Tiki Room. There were some other things that happened in that meeting as well, which we'll get to in just a little bit. So continuing on with Imagineering.
All right, so we have Imagineer Wathel Rogers, who was in charge of animation testing, and he actually designed a joystick mechanism to move the birds during the show. Like maybe not during the show, but while they were recording what the show would become. I don't know if we actually go into detail in our notes on this or not. I guess we talk about audio animatronics later, but we don't really go into like what that means.
Right, but
that well.
you
So
got to experience that joystick over at the Walt Disney Family Museum, though.
that's true. They do have, it looks just like the one that's in the videos, which I didn't realize that it looked, maybe the same one, I really don't know. Where you can kind of control, I say kind of control a bird, because the one over at the museum, I don't know if it's just really that hard to control or if it's just kind of, um, you know, getting old.
Yeah.
But the way that they designed this is the whole reason why it's called audio-animatronics. It was a term made for this show where before the Tiki Room, right? When he had animatronic or whatever you wanted to call it, I don't know if they even called them animatronics, because the Jungle Cruise existed. Let's be clear, right? You had animals moving, but they were created with just purely mechanics, where it was just doing a quick one little motion over and over again using cams and other mechanical things like you find in cars and stuff. As far as Bob Gurr describes it, and it would just do a short animation loop, so that's all you could really do with that kind of technology, where you would create a thing that you could go by in a boat or in a car, like over on any of the Fantasyland rides. Those aren't audio animatronics. A lot of people think that the name is coming from like animated things that have audio that they're synchronized with. But it's not that they're synchronized with them talking or the music. It is that they're using sound waves to actually control the motion. So when you moved that controller, it was putting different markers on audio tape to then translate into motion for their mechanics. So it's kind of a weird, like, again, I have trouble wrapping my head around it. Um, he said we could like Garner Holt on here to really explain it to us. But that's the way that they were designing it back then, because they did have computers for the show, but they were not as advanced as today's computers. Um, but everything was running off of audio tapes. So that's what he was writing to as he was moving the controller. So yeah, so it's just wild as far as them creating this for this project here. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many things I want to bring up, but again, we'll be here for hours. So
Yeah,
what's
but Waithel does mention that when Walt is on TV in September of 1963, uh, in the news interview, or not the news interview, but with his show Wonderful World of Color, and he is being interviewed and talking about this new, talking parrot with the joystick. Um, Waithel Rogers explains that joystick that they're using is the actual one that controlled him during the show. So, or not during the show, but like to record his movements for the show. So it wasn't just a prop that they were using or a replica or anything like that. That was the actual joystick used for that bird. So I thought that was really cool.
really cool. I love that.
So, and if you want to learn more about Waithel Rogers, we covered him in great detail over on episode 38 of the Imagine That podcast. So go back and listen to that one.
All right, so just moving down our list of Imagineers and people who worked on the Tiki Room, you have John Frank, I think is how you pronounce his name. He was a machinist who specialized in bird animation somehow. I'm not really sure how he got that title since it wasn't something that really existed. But is he a big
I
fan
think
of birds? Do we know?
he worked on a number of things, but the reason why I added him on the list was because there is a picture of him with one of the birds, and he's showing Walt how it all works. So this was a mock-up of the bird of paradise in 61. So he's showing Walt how it all worked. So just want to give him a little mention.
All right, then we have Colin Campbell, who had designed the four flower boats. So you've seen the show a little bit, like right when you walk in, like they're already there above your head, but they come down and they're singing orchids that come to life on them. And he designed those flower boats. I guess they're more canoes. I'm not really sure how to describe them,
Yeah.
but they look like they should be on water, but they're up in the air and they're full of flowers. Um, Next up we have Jack Fergus, who we talked about him in detail not too long ago, and he worked on the this is tiki pole clay sculpture artist and painter was his title on this project. Not sure if are those the, because like they have in this attraction where it looks like totem poles, but the Polynesian culture didn't really have totem poles, so this is a tiki pole. um
Yeah.
I believe they created this concept just for the show. I don't know if these actually existed in the real world. Like as
Yeah.
far as them talking, obviously not, but even just symbolic ones, I don't think so.
There's a fascinating, story by Rolly that, it talks about Jack and how Jack is, like, 6'7", and so he's creating these, tiki or, totem pole, and originally there were 3 characters, but then they decided, "No, we don't want the mouths to be so low that people are gonna put their hands in there, and then we'll have all kinds of issues, so we'll just stick with the 2." So Jack is over there, he's sculpting these totem figures or these it says, tiki pole clay sculptures, and he doesn't know what color to paint them. And there's a great story in the book from Marc Davis that is talking about how we have John Hinch who says, let's paint them in earth tones, and then you have wait, I have a glare on my thing. You have Marc Davis saying they're supposed to be pink, and he goes back and forth with one day John comes in and says, "What are you doing with this pink? They need to be earth tones." And then Mark comes in saying, "What are you doing with these earth tones? Paint them pink." And then finally, one day, the two of them are walking together, Mark and John, and Jack says, "Fantastic." Grabs them both, being 6'7", puts them face to face, and says, "I'm not letting either of you go until you tell me what color these are supposed to be." So I thought that was so great. Just a little behind the scenes story of, we could have had pink tiki gods. Like, what? That's crazy. But I'm sure they would have turned out just fine. But we have the
We
earth
would
tones we
accept
have
that
today.
as we would accept that as how it's supposed to look. But what we
Yes.
have is great. So well, I'm glad that they went for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so after that, another scene that's in this show, again, if you've seen it, um, when the gods get angered with all of the celebrating, there is a storm that occurs. And there's a rain effect that was created by none other than Yale Gracie, who apparently we covered in episode 40.
Of
So
course.
Yale Gracie also is famous for working on the Haunted Mansion, a lot of the effects in that. So it's kind of his job. Um, I know that there's a story in Rolly Crump's book all about how he created it with like mylar strips to make it look like it's rain flowing. And he mentions that when they built the one over in Florida, they decided, hey, let's let's up this. Like, why are we gonna like do this on the cheap with mylar? Let's use actual water. So they redid it and they put in a whole water system and had it where when the gods get angered by all celebrating, actual water came down on the windows, but it looked terrible because you could tell it was streaming from like a system. So a few years later, they took that whole thing out and replaced it with Yale Gracie's effect with the Mylar. So I thought that was very interesting. Like as far as like trying to like improve on Yale Gracie's effects, don't bother. He knew what he was doing. Yeah, so wonderful. And then we have Karen Wright, and I don't know if this was just for the Magic Kingdom, right? Is that what you say? Or she
Yeah, I don't
may
know
have
if it
not
was
done
just for the
Disneyland?
Magic Kingdom or if she also worked on the original ones for Disneyland, but the wall panel designs that you see around the, interior of the Tiki Room, like the mural that is behind the drummers, for example, so she painted these, in a New Guinea style, and they are fantastic. So in the Marc Davis book that you see some of her concept art and then some of the pieces that she did. So shout out to Karen for really bringing in this world and having that additional New Guinea flair.
Wonderful. Yeah, so just want to bring up that the writers of the show are listed here somewhere. On the d23.com site, they have a thing about the 50th anniversary of the attraction, where they mention Larry Clemens and Marty Sklar being the main writers, along with help from Wally Bogue and Fulton Burley, who we mentioned earlier, who are both from the Golden Horseshoe Review. Larry Clemens, I feel like he doesn't get a lot of mentions out there. I don't know a lot about him. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
he was definitely a guy
He
who well, go for it.
I was just gonna say he's kind of known as a comedy writer, and so he was one of the ones that was brought in from like the Sherman Brothers meeting when they were like, okay, we need some sort of help in writing this, and so he was one of those that was brought in to kind of have that comedic flair in the middle of the song. So like when I think of the song of you know, uh, I sang so sweetly, I should sing solo. Yeah, solo, we can't hear you. Like, I think of like those kind of comedic little quips in the middle of the song that could be attributed to the comedic writing from
Interesting.
Larry and also perhaps to from Wally and Fulton as well.
I just looked him up. Apparently, he worked on The Jungle Book and Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree and the Aristocats and Robin Hood
All
and the
kinds of stuff.
Rescuers. And the last thing he worked on for Disney was The Fox and the Hound as a writer. He was also an animator before that, but it looks like he stopped doing that in the 40s. So
Gotcha.
very interesting. I like that they kept him working over here. And yeah, so I guess kind of rounding it out here, we have working on the birds, specifically on their feathers, right? Because Blaine Gibson designed the sculpt of the birds, but actually doing the hard work of like getting the feathers on there. Again, we're talking about Bird Day. I think it may have been actual feathers back in the 60s. So again, that was before the 2002 Bird Day being created. What were you gonna say?
There is a thing by Harriet Burns. I know you're about to mention Harriet, where she was talking about using faux feathers, so they're not
Okay,
actual
thank
feathers. Just
goodness.
wanted to clarify before we get
I
any hate
like
mail.
this. All right, so they were on board with annual with the National Bird Day long before anybody else. So we have Harriet Burns, who we covered in episode 37, as well as Leota Toombs and Joyce Carlson. They were busy feathering these birds for the show, and yeah. So I don't know if you have a clever segue for this, or
Well, with all of these birds, we know that they are incredibly colorful and a lot of textures and it all just blends so seamlessly and a lot like this segment and this segue, I should say. See what I'm talking about? One who also uses a lot of color and pattern and texture is our good friend Louis Medina from Sunken City Designs. So if you have not already marked your calendar for next August, he is having a solo show in the high desert in Southern California. And it's going to feature all sorts of new pieces that he is working on. He's been working really, really hard in putting this collection together. He's also having other artists and some friends of his that are up and coming artists that are also going to be featured, as well as local youth artists as well. So be sure to follow Sunken City Designs on Instagram and over on his website, and make sure that you have those dates. It's happening all throughout the month of August, but I think the first weekend of August is when like his kind of like opening festivities are going to be where like he's going to be there, and it's just going to be a big celebration. So all of the info is going to be over on his website and over on Instagram. And of course, we'll be promoting it as we get closer, but super exciting things happening over at Sunken City Design.
yeah, you can also get some really great prints and T-shirts over at
Yes.
sunkencitydesigns.com. There's a lot of stuff based on Disney characters, so if you're a big fan of Disney. But he also has other cool stuff on there, including original art. So yeah, go check it out. sunkencitydesigns.com.
Absolutely. All right. So, in getting back to the birds, we're talking about who helped with their feathers, but who are these birds, right? So, the quote unquote cast of the musical review uses tones recorded on tapes. That's what we were talking about, but they vibrate a metal reed that closes a circuit to trigger a relay. Super technical stuff, but this sends a pulse of electricity to the mechanism that causes pneumatic valve a pneumatic valve to move a part in the figure's body. How they figured this out, I do not know. I feel
Sorcery,
like
definitely.
um, but there's a great story from Harriet Burns who was trying to figure out the fabric to use for the birds. She tried several different materials and it just wasn't working right. It would fall apart too easily, wouldn't have that movement that they were going for, especially with the breathing component of these birds, right? So Harriet is trying to figure out what material to use, and Walt comes in the room and he's wearing his famous blue sweater that he always wore, and she's like, "Hey, wait a minute. He's always wearing this. His arms are very animated and he's always moving around and it hasn't shown signs of wear. What is that sweater made out of?" And turns out it's made of brushed wool. And so Harriet goes to Frank Millington of the drapery department, and she says, like, "Frank can get me anything. Whatever fabric I was looking for, he knew where to go." So they find some brushed wool, and that is what is used on the birds. And she said it worked for over 40,000 shows before it shows signs of wear. So kudos to Walt for having this sweater that was then the inspiration for, hey, we could use that for our birds as well. So brushed wool, who knew?
Right? That's pretty cool. I mean, it's crazy that they're able to, like, just solve things based on, like, what's happening right then. Like, what if he wasn't wearing that sweater? What if they just given up, you know? It's just mind-boggling how
Yeah.
we get things in this world. Um, Next thing on our list is the Birdmobile, which I brought up earlier, talking about the Vegas showgirls of the Enchanted Tiki Room. And, that structure was actually made by an engineering team, but Rolly was the one who sculpted it. Apparently, Marc Davis did concept art for it, and John Hench is the one who suggested that they paint it white to look like bleached driftwood. So yeah, that's how we ended up getting that part of the show in there. And yeah,
Yeah. Which is pretty crazy. So I don't know like which came first, if like the bleach driftwood scene kind of went with like the white of the feathers look, which then did the Vegas showgirl look, or if it was like all at once. Like we don't really know the backstory behind all of that, but
yeah, but it does look good. I mean, it's fine. It's a good part of the show, so it
yeah.
worked.
And then during the conversation that we were talking about with the Sherman brothers and how they needed to come up with a song really, really fast, during that conversation, Walt had this idea. So I have the story as told by Richard Sherman from this book, the volume 1 of Marc Davis book. So they're trying to figure out, okay, what are we gonna do? And so the group asked, well, who do you want to sing it? And they were looking around the room again. They're in Studio 3, where the whole room is put together before it's put into the park. And um, they said, well, you could use a parrot. You could believe it would be singing words, and he could be sort of the MC. And Walt immediately said, we'll have 4 parrots. We'll have a Dutch parrot, we'll have a Spanish parrot, we'll have a French parrot, and we'll all have different parrots in 4 corners of the rooms. And they will all be contributing to this thing, and we'll have them making comments and everything. So I love that it was Walt's idea to have 4 birds, and they're all from different countries. So, this
Yeah,
is indeed his Enchanted Tiki Room.
right. I guess we could talk about the show host right now. So we
Yeah.
have four birds. You have Jose, Michael, Pierre, and Fritz. Jose was actually voiced by Wally Bogue, which today would be considered probably offensive, but what are you going to do? I believe he was not of Latin American descent. Correct me if I'm wrong, internet. Again, he wasn't supposed to be Latin American. Sorry, he was supposed to be Spanish from Spain. So that's who Jose is. Michael is portrayed by Fulton Burley, who is supposed to be Irish, and Pierre was portrayed by Ernie Newton, who was French. I don't know if he was French, but the character was French. And Fritz, the German bird, was actually voiced by Thurl Ravenscroft, who, again, is a famous voice actor, famous for Tony the Tiger, as well as I don't know if he was the ghost host or just saying in the Grim Grinning Ghost now that I keep thinking about it, keep like second thinking. In my head, he's the ghost host, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way, I know him for the Haunted Mansion as well. So Thurl Ravenscroft was Fritz. and their voices are still used today. And so if you go to the park, that's who you're going to hear telling all the silly jokes in the tiki room. And like I said, they are supposed to be Spanish, Irish, French, and German, and their feathers are colored to match kind of like the feel of those countries. So Jose has more of a red like look to at least the top of him, like the Spanish flag, and the Irish one has white and green, and Pierre has blue and white, and Fritz has black, red, and white. So yeah, that's the reason why.
which is crazy. So I totally didn't know that, and I just thought, yeah, these are colorful birds, but and that's the other thing too of these birds were already like they were already working on at least Jose. And so when he was already red, and from what the pictures that we found with, Harriet working on the feathering of the birds, but like when was this whole time frame? They came up with the idea for the four birds, but then how did that conversation go of, okay, one's going to be French, one's going to be German. Okay, well in that case then their colors need to be this. And so is it one of those like we were talking about of like we just need to get this done. And what is something that makes sense? Okay, great. You know, I think that's yeah, we just need to be a fly on the wall when these things happen.
Exactly. I want to say I originally like I read something I couldn't find it again afterwards. So I could be wrong about this, but I want to say I read something that originally all four of them were supposed to be green. Like they were all gonna be
Mm.
green parrots just having a conversation. But as they kind of fleshed out the characters, they realized we need something to really differentiate these guys because they're not the same bird. So yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, so also as I brought up earlier, this was the very first audio animatronic attraction ever created on the entire planet. Um, there are more now. Obviously, like many have come and gone since this was created. This predates anything at the 1964 World's Fair because again, this opened in 1963. So it predates Lincoln. It predates Pirates of the Caribbean. It predates Haunted Mansion and everything else out there. So that's what we have here. The term audio animatronics was actually first commercially used by Disney in 1961, probably talking about working on this attraction. And they didn't file a trademark until 1964, and it was registered in 1967. I don't know that's if they're still actually like having that trademark because I don't know what Garner Holt calls his animatronics, or if they even call them audio animatronics anymore. Animatronics obviously is just a combination of animation and electronics, I believe. So that's all that you got there. Yeah, the other fun fact about this attraction is that it was the first like real full attraction at Disney parks, or I guess any theme park, that was actually air conditioned, which is something that we all kind of take for granted these days. Um, in order to get the show to work, they needed computers, which were apparently put underneath the show area. So they needed the air conditioning to have it where the computers didn't melt because this was 1960s computers. I don't know how big these were. I'm sure there's photos out there somewhere because I'm sure, like, I was telling Amanda before the show, like, back in the 60s when they were working on, like, flying to the moon, there's video out there where, like, their computer was taking up rooms, where it was huge. This is before that, before we made it to the moon, we had the tiki room. So yeah, I don't know. It was crazy. They've obviously updated it since then. They've improved the way that they're running the show. It's not running off the same 1960s infrastructure. But yeah, very interesting that this was the first spot you can go in and just sit down and enjoy a show in the air conditioning. I think
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. All right.
it is pretty cool. Haha, I see what you did there. It's the air conditioning
I
show.
did it.
Uh,
I said all this. Yeah.
wow, you really channeled your inner Wally and Larry on that one.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, speaking of dining, so in 1962, Walt asked Vic Green to, quote, draw up a plan for seating of audience with all tables removed from the room and the show presented as a sit down performance rather than a dinner show. So, October of 1962. Again, this attraction opened June of 1963. So we're talking a few months before opening day. Walt says, "Hey, this is not working as a restaurant." right, which we alluded to in the beginning, we need to change this up. And that is just wild. Such a huge pivot so late in the game. So Vic Green, um, draws up the plans for having this be a show, not a restaurant. And it proved to not only be a better this proved to be a better guest experience, but it was not the best news for Stouffer's. Remember, they were the sponsor for this restaurant, and they had just signed a multi-year contract to sponsor all three parts, right? The Plaza Pavilion, this Enchanted Tiki room, and the Tahitian Terrace. And so now that Tahitian Terrace is not going to be a thing. Like we're switching it up. And
Well,
so they would
but
end
the
their
Tahitian terrace was created, just to be clear.
right, but like the third part, like
Yeah.
they were switching it up. And so they would Stouffer's would end their sponsorship in March of 1963, like all together. They're like,
Wow.
we're out. And so WED proceeded to pay for the tiki room themselves. And that is why the guests had to pay a separate ticket outside of the ticket book system, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And so they had to cover the cost somehow, because they were like, okay, we're left with the bag the last few months of this. So we need to recoup the costs. So yeah, as I mentioned, the attraction opened June 19th, 1963 to a 100 hand-picked cast members and their families along with the press. So this was like a open to the press, kind of a media event. And Walt was present for the ceremony, and so he was able to see how delighted the guests were in getting that wow factor. Wally, we mentioned that he was the voice of José. He was behind the scenes doing some ad-libbing and answering questions, as José. They were also called mech audios, like the macaws audio, right? Uh, and so that that's just what the book said. I'm just quoting the book.
Okay.
But but it was a huge success and the public went wild with it. They were reading the publications that the press had put out from that press release on the 19th, and it was open to the public on June 23rd. Um, and but as if you look online, there are some differing dates of whether it was the 22nd or the 23rd, but it was around that time, a few days after that initial run with the press and for the cast members. So, um, but if you look at pictures from the 60s, not much has changed. We have the tikis, we have the birds, the birdmobile. It all looks very similar, if not the same, as what was in the 60s to what we have today. So I think that is pretty cool. It's one of those like don't mess with it. This was Walt was so heavily involved with this attraction, that it's very much like his baby, and it's working. It still works. It still is doing all that it's supposed to do, and it's still an iconic attraction.
I know
So
a few minutes have been shaved off of the show. I'm not sure exactly what
right.
scenes have been removed, but it's not the exact same show from when Walt first put it into the park, but it does look very similar. If you just glance at it, they haven't like altered the birds too much. At least here in California. Um, yeah, they definitely have done some work. The other locations that they this. I don't know if we want to cover that right now, or are we ready for
Well,
this?
in
Or
yeah, we go further into it later.
okay, perfect.
So so then Walt decided to put the ownership of the attraction under his own company, WED Enterprises, rather than the Walt Disney Company, which owned the rest of the park. And so, like I said, this meant that guests had to pay a small admission fee of 75 cents when the ride opened. And later that year, in 1963, uh, the e-ticket had a face value of 60 cents. So this was more than the e-ticket. So there you go. There you have it.
Yeah, I think I've read things. I was trying to find it right now. That this was the most expensive attraction ever made at its time, which seems crazy to me because it came in after the Matterhorn bobsleds, after the submarines, which seemed like they should have cost more. But again, I haven't fact checked that, but that's what I've heard. And it makes sense that it would be since they were charging more for it than those other e-ticket attractions.
Right.
Like it costs more to do this than the monorail, the submarines, or the Matterhorn, which were just put in 4 years earlier. You know, it's not like they were old rides at that point. So it's pretty wild.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it eventually did become an e-ticket though. Sometime between 1966 1967. If you aren't familiar with the ticket system at Disney, it used to be that when you went to the park, you paid an admission fee to get into the park, and then you had to buy either individual ticket or you had to buy a ticket booklet, and that booklet would have which attractions you can go to on individual tickets between A, B, C, D, and E. Eventually, when obviously the Tiki Room opened, the e-ticket was out, and yeah, so Amanda's showing it on the screen if you're following us on YouTube, and yeah, so it wasn't part of that when the attraction opened, obviously, but it did eventually become it. Um, yeah, I don't know if we've already brought up the sponsors yet for this attraction. So
just
when
Stofers.
you mentioned Stouffer's, they dropped out, right? There's some concept art out there with RCA sign, but they were never a sponsor of this either. What we did have when the attraction first opened was United Airlines. They sponsored it from 1963 until 1976. And the reason why they were sponsoring a room full of birds was because they had flights going out to Hawaii. And Hawaii was very popular because, again, it had only been a state for 4 years by the time that this attraction opened. So, yeah, so you had United Airlines, but after 1976, it switched over to Dole Foods from 1976 until today. Like if you go there today, it's still brought to you by Dole Foods. But they never had it where, like in my head, it was always like, hey, they had a sponsor, which meant that that attraction was free because I've always lived in the time after 1983 where you went to the park with a ticket that got you on everything, right? I never had a ticket book when I went there. And yeah, but no, even though they had a sponsor, they were still charging you to get into this attraction. And as far as I know, it was an e-ticket attraction when this stopped in 1982. Um, yeah, so the very last year of ticket books at Disneyland, you had it where it was an e-ticket attraction brought to you by Dole Foods. And yeah, so talking about sponsors, we do have one more left, and they're a big one, guys. So again,
They
if you're a
are.
fan of theme parks, you should be a fan of this company. Amanda, tell us all about it. She's
Are
pointing
you
to
talking
the
about
groom here.
where in the park?
Yeah, they're the best, hands
They
down.
are, because that's us.
Yeah, that's true. We actually run this. We create games that you play at theme parks. Yeah, so if you're ever finding yourself like looking up a trip to a theme park, if you don't go all the time like we do, and you want something new to do there, if you're like, hey, it's gonna be a busy time of year, I don't want to stand in long lines, order one of our games before you get out there. We'll get it over to you. It's actually a physical game pack that you're going to bring to the park with you. Put it into your bag. It's not big, it's going to fit. And it's full of cards. Every card has an image. The image is hidden somewhere in the theming of the park. The question, of course, is where in the park? And that's the name of the game. That's the name of our website, whereinthepark.com. That's where you'd go to find all of our games. We have them available for all kinds of parks, not just Disney. We also do Universal and Six Flags and SeaWorld and Legoland and name a park. We either have it or we're working on it. So, yeah. We also have a
Yeah.
podcast that we run. I think I mentioned that earlier where I was like, oh, was that on this podcast? Imagine that. Or was that on our other podcast, the Where in the Park podcast? And we do deep dives on theme parks all the time. And again, not just Disney over there. We do have Universal. We do have Knott's Berry Farm and SeaWorld and the rest.
And in our most recent episode, we were talking about holidays at Disneyland and DCA and how uh, the history of the holidays. And in our next episode, Kevin, what's the next episode? You're working on that one.
Oh gosh. We're gonna be starting our traveling around the World Showcase at Epcot. And we're gonna be diving into the details at the France Pavilion. So it's going to be a good one, and we're going to go all around the park throughout the entire year. Our plan is to hit up one country every month because there are 11 countries plus an outpost, and we'll tell you all about that throughout the year. So
Yeah.
come join us. We're in the Park podcast.
Yeah. So We're in the Park podcast. And then also for your games over on we'reinthepark.com, you can use promo code Walt's APT Pod or Walt's APT Podcast. Either one will work. And you can get 10% off your games. So the links are in the show notes below and check it out. If you have any questions, let us know at We're in the Park. That's where you can DM us and we are quick to respond. So there you go. There you have it. All right. So back to the show. We have a little bit more to tell you because we are going to the other parks because it's not just Disneyland that has the Tiki Room. We also have one over at the Magic Kingdom. And so there is some wonderful concept art in the Marc Davis book by Dorothea Redmond. And so she did the concept art for the Tropical Serenade show building. And Marc Davis himself created some concept art for the pre show with the waterfall that would then feature the Tiki god Citricua, which we mentioned earlier, the god of health that features two birds, Claude and Clyde Birdbrain, that sit upon the god and entertain the guests before the show. And the concept art for that tiki god was actually created by Sam McKim. And we talked a lot about Sam McKim, especially in our episodes with his son Matt in our two-part episode of Imagine That. I think it was episode 11 and 12, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely check
Maybe.
that out because that was a great discussion. But yeah, so um, they created the concept for that pre-show. And again, that was an e-ticket attraction opening day in 1971. But actually, I have pictures of this. But by 1972, it became a D ticket attraction. So very quickly, it had changed to a D ticket attraction. So, and then also in 1978, we have a picture here where it is still a D ticket attraction.
Well, the
Um,
interesting thing about that is that the name actually on that first year was Tropical Serenade on the ticket book, but it changed very quickly to just be listed as Enchanted Tiki Birds. So it
yeah,
wasn't the Enchanted Tiki Room, it wasn't the Tropical Serenade according to the ticket. It was still the Tropical Serenade according to the sign, and it was from 1971 until 1998. It was considered the Tropical Serenade until they redid it to the Enchanted Tiki Room under new management, which I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. It was only there for gosh, over a dozen years, I guess, from 1998 until 2011. I saw it once, I think. I don't think did you ever see that one? I can't remember.
I think I
Maybe
did, but I don't remember much about it.
it was before I met you. It was eventually damaged by fire in 2011, I believe. Um, and again, this show it had it where they decided to improve because again with we're the Imagine That podcast, you know all about plussing, right? So they decided that this attraction wasn't getting the number of guests that they were hoping for back in 1998, and so they decided to add some newer characters to the show. So it's a bird show again, it's bird day. um they decided to add Iago from Aladdin and Zazu from The Lion King, and there's even like a song sung by Gilbert Godfrey in there, which again, I mean, God rest his soul, R.I.P. Gilbert Godfrey. Um, yeah, whenever he sings as Iago, it's like this is not working for most of the audience. Um, but yeah, there was also I do want to bring up though, like Amanda had brought up that there are two birds inside of that waterfall, Claude and Clyde. During this version of the show, there were actually some new characters in there. There were they were voiced by Don Rickles and Phil Hartman. Again,
Oh wow.
RIP to both of them. But yeah, so it's just interesting that they did try a whole new thing. I think they're probably back to the original voices. I'm not sure. Haven't found anything contradicting that or not. But
These
it was
guys.
just a short-lived thing they had over there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, again, it switched back in 2011 to just the Enchanted Tiki Room. I think it's Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room is the official name for that attraction over there now. They did not go back to the Tropical Serenade. Um, but yeah, also from 1971 to 1996, it was sponsored by the Florida Citrus Growers, which is I don't know if Orange Bird was involved with this too much back then or not, but that's when you had that character in the parks, was because they were a sponsor. Florida Citrus Growers.
Love that. Kind of love Orange Bird.
Yeah, he's cute. He's got a big head. Looks like an orange, but he's
He's
a
an
bird. It's
orange.
crazy. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, moving right along to Tokyo Disneyland. So this opened in 1983 and design wise was very similar to the Magic Kingdom. So let me share that. So this is from tikicentral.com. So it has some pictures. And you see it looks very similar to that of the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, they definitely use the Dorothea Redmond show building here.
And they also have tikis. Look at that. We got Tangaroo, we got Pele, we got them all.
Yeah, you have the Rolly Crump tikis, which the one in Florida I think has like one or two tikis. That's very light on the tikis on that side. But they added them over there in Japan. Again, 1983 sounds like it came in late. That's actually when that park opened. So it was an opening day attraction over there. And when the park opened, that was actually a D ticket attraction. It wasn't an E ticket, but it was higher up on the list compared to a lot of other attractions. They only had 10, I believe, when they first opened over there. And yeah, as far as I can tell, it's hard to find good photos from Tokyo Disneyland's ticket books over the years. I believe it stayed that way until they got rid of ticket books. Um, they no longer have them, so if you go to the park, you can just go into there. It was redeveloped from 1983 to 1999. You had it where it was just the Enchanted Tiki Room happening inside of that theater. It was redeveloped as the Enchanted Tiki Room presents Get the Fever, where it was like supposed to be stylized after a nightclub. I don't know. I never saw it. I've never found a video of it either. I'm sure it's available online. I maybe haven't actually looked for it. But yeah, that had a good whatever 16-year run before it was switched over in 1989 to the Enchanted Tiki Room. Stitch presents Aloha e Komo Mai or E Komo Mai. I'm not sure how to pronounce Hawaiian. But yeah, so now we have it where Stitch takes over the show. It's like kind of like Hawaiian style Stitch, like Elvis Presley Stitch. We haven't been to the park yet to see the show, but I've heard good things. Yeah, I was reading a thing on the DisneyTouristBlog.com about how, like from years ago, but they were talking about how this is the recipe for disaster, right? They know redoing the Tiki Room is not a good idea. They also know redoing an attraction with Stitch is not a good idea because again, we've had that happen at Magic Kingdom twice now with the alien encounter becoming the Stitch encounter, and then the Tiki Room having under new management. But they said this one actually works very well. So it's been there since '99 and it's still running. So hopefully we can get out there someday and check it out for ourselves. And yeah, I just wrote down all the sponsors, so I've said the other ones. So I'll say this one too. It's brought to you by Shinko Securities Company Limited. As far as I know, they're still the sponsor, and they've been the sponsor since day one. Why they're sponsoring a bird show about Polynesian culture, I'm not sure, but it's working for them.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
Well, the last part before we close out, you can't go to Adventureland and you can't fully enjoy the tiki rooms unless you have the one and only Dole Whip. I'm wearing my sweatshirt, my sweat jacket with the pineapple Dole Whip right there because we're talking about Dole Whips. We got to talk about it. We just have to. We'd be remiss if we didn't. So, Kevin, what do we know about Dole Whips
All
other than
right.
they're
So before I
delicious?
go into that, I do want to point out that over at Disneyland, like we said, this was supposed to be a restaurant, which means that still to this day, you can get a Dole Whip and walk into the show with that Dole Whip. Food is allowed, unlike most theaters. But yeah, the Dole Whip itself, though, was actually created by Dole, um, where there was a young lady who was 24 years old at the time, Kathy Westfall. There's a YouTube video of her out there. Explaining how she started working at Dole, and the first project that she was put on back in 1983 was to create a frozen dessert for Walt Disney World. That was kind of her project that she was put on. So she talks about how she spent a year just messing with this recipe to try to get just right, where it had to get over to them as a powder that they were going to turn into a soft serve, hopefully. So they kept mixing ingredients and throwing it through a soft serve machine until they ended up with the right consistency and flavor. And that is what we have as a Dole Whip today. Yeah. So Kathy Westfall, thank you very much if you're listening. We appreciate your hard work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is still delicious. It is still fantastic. And to know that that was her very first like thing that the very first project that she was on at age 24, right out of college. Shout out to UC Davis because that's where she graduated from. And that is just fantastic because who doesn't love a Dole Whip? And now the different iterations that they have of it, but her original recipe, and I think it's still the same recipe.
As far as I know.
So that's just fantastic that it's going on for this long and is loved by millions every year. So
I guess I should point out that this Hawaiian treat was actually created at the Dole Technical Center in San Jose, California. So just kind of funny, but yeah, really great. It was first sold at Magic Kingdom in 1984, and it was eventually also brought over to Disneyland in 1986. Yeah, Dole had actually been selling their products there since 1968 at Disneyland, which is before they were even a sponsor of the Tiki Room. So they had it where they were sponsoring the Tiki Juice Bar in front of the Tiki Room, brought to you by United Airlines, and eventually they took over the sponsorship of both, like they are today.
that's awesome. Which totally makes sense, you know. They're like, hey, we're already sponsoring the building in front of it. We might as well sponsor the whole thing. So makes sense.
And they
But
eventually took over the sponsorship of the Aloha Isle, which was formerly the Veranda Juice Bar over at the Magic Kingdom. So it's to the right of the Tiki Room over there. So you can also get your Dole Whips there, as well as like Dole Pineapple Spheres and Dole Pineapple Juice. But yeah,
yeah.
there it is.
And then of course you can get your different Dole Whips over at um oh
Tropical Hideaway.
congratulations Tropical Hideaway, thank you. Over at Disneyland. Which the peach one, if you've not had, oh, it is so good. But
It's great.
original classic pineapple, can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.
Yeah, really. I mean, you can get a Dole Whip many places nowadays, like any county fairs, any sometimes at gas stations. It just matters how lucky you are, I guess. I know when we went to Hawaii, like all of the machines were broken for some reason. So,
Yes.
but again, it's not
Oh,
even a Hawaiian treat; it's a California treat. So get it when you're at Disneyland, California, and know that you're near the original place here. They just why do they not have these at California Adventure? It's kind of weird. Now that I
that
know the
is
origin of the
strange.
Dole Whip. Yeah. All right.
That is
Just food
strange.
for thought there.
But yeah, I don't know. Hey Disney, if you're listening, we need
If you made it,
but then
if you made
again,
it this
like
far, yeah.
it's part of the theming, it's part of the storytelling. It's part of the sponsorship, to have it over there. So I guess it makes sense. And then, California has your other flavors, not of Dole Whip, but you have your different ice cream flavors and all of that. But yeah, I don't know. They can make it
I
happen.
don't know either. But yeah, so that's
All right.
I think that covers pretty much everything I had in my notes. How about you?
Yes, ditto. No, we have run long and we apologize, but we hope that you've learned a lot, not just about the Tiki Room birds, but the Tiki Room in and of itself. And next time you go to the Tiki Room, now you know who did what and when and how and all of the things. So I
Oh,
know next time we go, we'll definitely have a better appreciation for the Tiki Room.
before we go, I did look it up. I did finally find it.
Ah,
What was said by John Hench to Walt
very nice.
about the Maui, what became the Maui tiki, was that is the god of Tampa cloth beating. I'm not sure what that term means. I was trying to look it up. I don't know. There's no history of what why Tampa is involved with this, but that is what the book says. He says, and that's what Walt was like. See something about clocks, and he's like, Yes, Walt, I did. It's just kind of a funny way that the world works. And if he hadn't misheard him, what would that god be? I don't even know. But
Cloth
I'm
mating.
thankful for who he is. Right? I don't know. So there you go.
Wow. Well, good. I'm glad that you found it before we closed out. If you have enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have because we certainly have, this has been such a joy to research and share with you. If you've enjoyed this episode, scroll down on your podcast player right now and give us a 5-star rating. It just takes 10 seconds, just bloop, 5 stars. And if you have an extra minute to leave us a written review or share it with another fellow armchair Imagineer, that would be amazing. It only takes a couple of seconds and it just tells Apple, Spotify, and all the other players that we're doing something awesome. And it really helps out the channel. And if you are checking us out on YouTube, hi there. Hope you've enjoyed the images that we've been sharing throughout the episode. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And be sure to check out our amazing sponsors like us and join our absolutely free Discord and our Patreon page. For all of the details, the link is in the show notes below. So until next time, continue to place trust in the magic of imagination and remember the details within the parks surround us in our everyday lives. Imagine that. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world.